So welcome to the closing panel, and we have around the table, or along the stage, should I say, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6, excluding me, Scala and related technologies experts, who will be available to answer your questions in the space of the next half an hour. So it's quite tight. We finish at 5:30. I will very quickly introduce them. You probably know many of these people already, but we'll go from left to right along the stage. So we have Seth Tisue from Lightbend. Seth joined the Lightbend Scala compiler team 18 months ago, 2 years?
Yeah, about 2 years.
Yeah, so you're a fully involved member of the team now. Yeah. Stefan has been at Lightbend for
a very long time.
For a very long time.
2011.
Wow. This is your 6th, going on 7th year. Congratulations. And you work on, you previously worked on Slick, but you've moved now to the compiler team.
That's right. I'm on the compiler team for 1.5 years now.
Great. And Dmitry Petrashko. Dmitry is a PhD candidate at EPFL, has been working on Dotty, so he'll be on hand. He wasn't billed on the program, but we've invited him up because we want an expert on Dotty up here.
Thank you.
How's the PhD going?
Well, hopefully we'll defend my thesis soon.
Okay. You've got how long to go?
The defense is in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Someone who recently defended his thesis is Dr. Burmako, Eugene. Woo! Successfully defended his thesis.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Eugene is well known as having implemented macros for Scala, which I always say is the most significant step in power being delegated to users at any point, I think, in Scala's history. Eugene now works at Twitter. What's your title at Twitter?
DevTools engineer.
Macros guy at Twitter. and now Scala Meta. To Eugene's left is Adriaan Moors, who has been involved in Scala for as long as I can remember. My memory is fading. And heads up the Scala compiler team. And to his left is Bill Venners, who you will know as the Scala test guy and the community representative on the Scala Center Advisory Board. So would you give a warm welcome to all of the panel?
Welcome.
And if at any time you think of any questions, I think the best thing to do is if you tweet with the hashtag ScalaDaysPanel, I will, out of the corner of my eye, I will see it on my screen. But meanwhile, I will ask some questions that I've got prepared to some of the members up here, and maybe that will inspire you to ask your own questions. Alternatively, if there's an opportunity, just wave your hand, and I will maybe notice you out of the other corner of my other eye. And one way or another, we will ask the questions. We don't only have half an hour, so I will start off by asking Seth, who has. I still think of you as having recently joined the compiler team, but it's nearly 2 years, and I guess this demonstrates stability in the compiler team.
It's been the 5 of us now since Stefan joined. A good stable team.
And you've had 18 months now to you arrived on the compiler team with a lot of knowledge of Scala. You've been using Scala for 7, 8 years, I think.
Yeah, almost as long as you.
Yeah, okay. And you hadn't actually done any compiler work at the time, had you?
That's right. So my previous job was a compiler job. I was working on a language called NetLogo, writing a compiler in Scala. So I had compiler experience, but not compiling Scala experience.
And since then, since you joined, you've had this journey to actually working on your first plugin. how has that experience gone as someone joining the team and gaining the experience from the other members of the compiler team?
It's been great. I mean, it's a really tight-knit team, pleasant team to be on. The biggest challenge is probably the time zones. With Jason in Australia, there's really only one time we can even meet. At 4 o'clock, it used to be when I was in Boston, Lucas would be about to fall asleep. Jason would have just gotten up at the crack of dawn. And that's the only time that we can all talk.
Is it fair to say the sun never sets on Scala compiler development?
So it's good, though, being forced to work that way, because it means everything is asynchronous, and that's important when we want to involve open source people. And that's really my core theme on the team, especially looking forward, is trying to grow the open source community around the Scala compiler, standard library, modules, the whole effort.
And you've also worked on the community build. This is...
Yeah, that's probably the single thing that I've put the most time into. So that started in 2013 before I arrived, work done by Greg Kosakowski and Tony Kunai and others. It started as just a couple dozen projects that we build with new versions of Scala to make sure that as we're changing Scala that we're not breaking community projects.
How big is the community build? How many projects are being built by it?
It's currently 104. And we haven't done a lines of code count recently, but Greg had estimated that it was about 1 million lines of code, and that was when we had maybe a third as many projects. So it's probably several million by now.
And as a measure of how effective it is, how often does the community build get broken in the cases where the tests in Scala don't break? So how many times is it catching things in the wild? Or the semi-wild, should I say?
Yes. So we're very glad that we did this, that Adriaan and others had the foresight to initiate this, because I really don't think there's any release of Scala in the last few years that the community build didn't find at least one bug.
Okay, fantastic.
Often well more than one.
Okay. And I'm just going to ask Stefan now. You've been working recently on the updated Scala collections library.
Yes, that's right.
Which is quite exciting, because it's been several years since the collections library saw any major development. I remember that there was a sort of a big bang update to collections in about 2009.
I think it was Scala 2.8. I don't remember the exact year.
It was 2.8. And I remember it in particular because we had a discussion with Martin, myself, Miles Sabin, and David McIver, if anyone remembers him. Where the idea originally arose back in Scala 2.7 days to use this thing called can build from as a means of enhancing the collections library. And it was a huge amount of work after that decision was made to use this sort of type class-based approach. And I didn't see Martin for 18 months or so after that. I don't know if Martin's still around. But I remember I was wandering one day through Cambridge, where I was living at the time, and Martin cycled past me on a bike and screeched to a halt. And he said to me, well, aside from being surprised that he had seen me randomly in Cambridge, he said, "Oh, I'm so pleased. I've just managed to transform the collections from Scala 2.7 to 2.8 and updated all of the code, and it worked." And he was visibly very pleased. That was the 2.8 collections, and since then there's been 5 or so years of creeping complaints about that, and now we've had the opportunity to fix many of those.
Yes,
So
this started with an initiative of Martin's. He wanted to do a redesign, but stay mostly compatible to the current collections. And for the parts that will not be compatible, we want to use a tool called Scala Fix, which is developed by Scala Center, in order to migrate old code to the new collections design. And we're in the process of getting rid of can build from, almost getting rid of can build from.
And can you explain why that is desirable?
Well, it's desirable because can build from adds complexity that's hard to understand. So usually you see the happy path, like you call this map method and there's a mapping function, everything is fine, but then when you have an error in there, some type error, then you see the can build from creeping up in your error messages. And if you try to find out how map actually is defined, you have to look at Scala docs. And they had to add a feature to Scala docs to hide the real complexity and make it seem simple, but it's a lie. So they just hide the complexity from you, but if you look at the source code or at error messages, it's still there. So now we're moving to an overloaded methods design, which can get rid of can build from in most of these cases entirely. So you actually get the message signature that Scaladoc pretends you already have.
Okay. By the way, I'm checking. In fact, it's been tweeted. I'm checking my Twitter feed. If anyone has any questions they'd like me to ask, mention them with the hashtag #ScalaDaysPanel, and I will hopefully see it up here. I did ask on Twitter earlier whether anyone had any questions for the panel. There's a question there. I will go to that in a second. Could a microphone? Yeah, thank you. No hurry. Don't worry, Diana. I'm going to ask a question slowly first, so you can leisurely wander over there. I asked the question on Twitter earlier if anyone, possibly outside the conference, had questions for the panel, and someone called Contrary Variant asked if the panel knows anything about alpacas. Instead, I might ask a different question.
Alpaca, is that some kind of marsupial?
It might as well be. So given someone has named their Twitter tag after a bug, arguably a bug, in Scala, what is the status of the contrary variance issue at the moment, Adriaan?
Are you asking about alpaca farming?
Yeah, I mean, if you have an answer about alpaca farming, that might be
the status is unchanged.
It's unchanged and is unlikely to change. That's very sad for alpaca farmers out there. Okay, so we had a question over there. You now have a microphone. Ask away.
This question is for the Lightbend team. I want to get a clearer sense of the timeline for Java 9 support. I know there's already some preliminary ones in 2.12. I know there's more planned for 2.13. But I do want to have a clear timeline.
Okay, thanks. So I think Adriaan's probably the best person to answer this.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So 2.13 will be the release that really supports Java 9. 2.12 will run on it, but won't necessarily take advantage of it. The 2.13 type checker will likely be the first one that understands module boundaries and stuff like that, so you don't get linkage errors when your program type checks, and so it knows about the new visibility constraints that the module system enforces.
Have you mentioned any dates yet?
No.
Okay, just
so
checking. I thought maybe I'd missed them.
2.13, yeah. Thanks for keeping me honest. 2.13 is due out the first quarter 2018. And so in the meantime, 2.12 releases, we'll keep updating them as we have time to make sure that we are compatible at least with the module file system on Java 9 so that we can run without an rt.jar. And so the basic kind of minimum thing you need to do to run on Java 9, both to run the compiler on Java 9 and to run compiled code on Java 9. The latter is, of course, pretty easy because Java is backwards compatible. There's, of course, also the question of tooling, and so the SBT team is working on that as well. I think that'll be part of the 1.0 release, which is they just released a milestone. I don't know what that snark is for.
I'm ignoring you and reading the tweets.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. So to give you a date, 2.13 will be the one that has kind of the fullest Java 9 support that we intend. and that will be Q1 next year. But in order to just run and compile in Java 9, that should be happening now for you. If there is an issue, we'd like to hear about that and look into fixing it.
Okay.
It's a funny scheduling problem because Java 9 is still changing, so we don't want to do too much work on something that's going to disappear out from under us.
Well, I mean, we're testing on it because it'll go GA this summer. So we will, as we have feedback for Oracle, we'll share that with them. But so far, honestly, I mean, since this is recorded, but still. We'll see. We're kind of, we'll make sure that we run on Java 9 and that we kind of, this is what we're planning to do. There are some technicalities also about like final fields and stuff like that where they're tightening the spec a little bit. So there's var handle coming out that we can use to do safe publication instead of doing put field and final. I mean, it gets a little bit technical and boring, but we're aware that there are certain things that are changing in Java 9 that we need to adapt to, and that will happen in 2.13.
How much conversation happens between Lightbend and Oracle regarding?
Not a ton, but enough to learn about these things and to kind of discuss these things. So I go to the yearly JVM Language Summit where we kind of all get together and hear about what's next. And obviously, we also just watch the public discussions.
Okay. And Dmitry, seeing as you're here, you know Dotty. Does Dotty have Java 9 on its agenda anywhere, or is it not so much the focus?
So for the Java 9, as in Jigsaw, we're currently waiting for specification and the final version to be released. But to add on what Adriaan said, there's also additional cooperation with Oracle, where there is a Valhalla project by Oracle, which is intended to be Java 10 plus later. And we actually have 2 representatives on the expert group. The previous one was Vlato Heke, the other is me. And we're communicating quite frequently to ensure that the future performance features that Oracle will ship one day will be able to represent Scala code. To give you an example, there has been originally a more restrictive version of what specialization on VM could look like, which didn't encode Scala generics. And Vlad was able to convince Brian Götz to reconsider and add support which will be powerful enough to represent Scala.
Okay, well, by the way, while I'm looking around, try and catch my eye if you want to ask a question. Yeah, over there. The microphone is on its way.
You can call me Diana.
I did last time.
Hi, my question is regarding the collections rework for 2.13. My first question is, if you want to contribute to it, do you send PR against the Scala repo or the collection strawman or somewhere else? And my second question is there a benchmarking suite? Because you want to make sure you don't have memory or performance regressions against the current one. And it was hard for me to find something in the existing Scala code
So,
base.
Stefan, I think you're...
Yes. So to your first question, you should send the pull requests to the collection strawman repo at the moment. By the end of the second quarter, we intend to make a decision whether we want to go with this design for Scala 2.13, and afterwards we can start moving this over into the main Scala repo. And the strawman repo also has a benchmark suite. So you can add your benchmark methods there together with your implementations and get nice graphs comparing it to the original Scala implementation in 2.12 or whatever you run it against.
Yeah. In the coming weeks, it will additionally add a lot of more benchmarking harness. Agilas is currently working on it, and me and Julian are helping him out with how to do benchmarking properly.
And what are the exciting performance enhancements we might expect from the new collections?
Okay, so the new collection strawman more or less follows the design of Scala Blitz, which was the high performance and is high performance parallel collections for Scala. This design, in many cases, will be able to generate static dispatch where previous design had virtual dispatch. It will definitely help inside interpreter. It may help, if implemented correctly inside the JITs, to have better inlining boundaries and higher and wider optimization horizon. But the thing which will prove it eventually is actual benchmarks. This design has high chances of creating a library which will be more JIT friendly. But we need to make sure that this actually happens by doing proper benchmarking. And
we won't really know until we try it.
Yeah, as always.
It's the typical dark art of...
Well, we know that Scala Bliss was successful in this. So we know that if done right, it's possible. Now we need to replicate and improve what Scala Bliss did.
So we've got at least a proof of concept.
Yeah.
And what were the performance enhancements that came from Scala Bliss? Give me numbers.
So the numbers here is tricky. I can tell you that summing up the array in Scala Bliss was 20 times faster, but that's not representative.
That's all I need. No, that's fine. 20 times faster.
All right, next question.
We're good, yes. So Jason Schwartz, who's not here, sent me 6 questions on Twitter.
Let's do all of them. We have time.
I mean, one of them was who's the nicest member of the panel, so I won't ask that. In fact, I'll just ignore all of Jason's questions. Lustro asked...
That answers that question about the nicest member on the panel in some way.
Least nice member, maybe. No, he asked, what are the benefits of engineering organizations to adopt Scala? Maybe the Scala compiler team is not the people to ask here. But so, Bill or Eugene, do you have anything? I mean,
well, I think people adopt it for lots of different reasons that often may not have that much to do with tech. So one thing that I've heard people say is that they want to attract the kind of people who would be interested in programming in Scala because it's sort of, they would actually pick it for that reason, which is a social reason.
That's interesting. So it's a happy side effect of...
Yeah, I mean, there's different reasons people do it, and they're not always technical. So it really depends on the organization, I think.
And Eugene, you've been working now for a few months in an organization that adopted Scala quite early on. How do they find the experience? And in particular, somebody else also asked, they said hiring is difficult. How can an engineering organization be successful adopting Scala? I think that was Eric Peters. I think the implication is that it's difficult to hire, and you're constraining yourself by choosing Scala because you can't hire enough good people.
Well,
is that a problem?
I think I'll concur with Bill in the sense that this is more of a social thing than a technical choice. So I heard of the early days of Scala at Twitter, though I haven't been there personally. As far as I can understand, Scala provided major performance benefits over Ruby that was prevalent at the time. So that's what I know about our story. Definitely Stu, my co-presenter from earlier today, would have more information. Speaking of hiring, I also like this idea that the people who are learning Scala, as opposed to, or in addition to, the more mainstream languages, they may have the qualities that are interesting for some companies, for startups. The desire to learn new things, the fact that they're fluent in multiple languages, which means that they can pick up new technologies fast. I think that's a very important factor, though it's definitely harder to look for these people.
Okay, thank you. There's been some questions now on Twitter. Akka, there was a talk today on Akka running on Android. Now, for the Lightbend team up here, how many Lightbend developers are targeting mobile platforms? How much?
Of our customers, or?
The question does not specify, but
okay.
how much attention within Lightbend goes towards Scala being targeted towards towards Android and alternatives?
So, I mean, right now we're that's the stuff that we talk about internally of thinking about how we can do that. Now that there's Scala.js, that's pretty mature, and that's something that you could recommend, and we certainly get asked about that by customers. Whether we would support that or they're excited about that. Most of our focus is on the back end, and we certainly have discussed, but how do you consume these services, and how do you, a lot of the same principles apply to the front end, and we don't really have, a complete offering in that sense, and that's something that we're thinking about, but currently don't really have.
Will
like
Scala
a
native
offering for?
Will Scala native help there?
No, I don't think Scala native is really part of that puzzle. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Scala.js is really much farther along, and so if there are potential customers who would like to have commercial support for Scala.js, please at least let us know. It's not something we can promise yet whether it will happen, but talking to us about your need for that is one of the ways that it could eventually happen.
Yeah, I mean, historically we're more, our expertise is more in the back end, but we're attracting more, talent in the front end.
Okay.
About that.
A very quick question from Adam Rosian with a quick answer. When is option.get being removed? Anyone?
Never.
Never? Okay, that's settled.
Element not found
Actually,
exception.
I have a better answer for that. So there is an open pull request on making sys predef or Scala predef configurable, so you can swap it out. It's hard for me to imagine option.get ever being removed from the standard library for compatibility reasons, but it is getting more possible for people to swap in alternate standard libraries and alternate predefs so you can have it your way.
Okay, there's a question that came in earlier today, which I'm going to ask to every member of the panel. Again, it'll be a quick answer. The question is, what is your best and worst feature of Scala? I'll go for either best or worst. So if you want to give your best, or if you want to be a negative person, then you can give your worst.
Worst.
But yeah, you're all. I can see you're all thinking.
Oh, I have one.
So
best and worst underscore.
The implication that underscore is a feature is maybe debatable, but. Bill, have you got one?
No, I can't think. Oh, okay, come back to me.
Anyone else?
I'll pass.
Yeah. Dmitry, favorites?
So I have a favorite feature, which I believe we're actually now taken for granted in Scala. Multiple inheritance. Not that many languages actually support it, and not that many languages, when supporting it, don't create problems. We don't very frequently hear a problem of diamond inheritance in Scala, because Scala was well designed not to have it. But for most languages, multiple inheritance is either not supported or a big issue if we try to do it.
So does that not presume that inheritance, I mean, a lot of people complain about inheritance at all. They see it as a negative feature of the language. Do you think that, I mean, you can talk about the absence of complaints, but there are still complaints about inheritance in any form.
Well, I think those two questions are kind of orthogonal. If you do support inheritance, then it's nice to support multiple inheritance and do it in a safe way.
I think that's fair.
The question whether you want to have inheritance in the first place is the one that you can dispute. But if you do have inheritance, you better have it safe.
I would agree.
I came up with one. You got to end, right?
Yeah, we do shortly. I think we'd have one more question from the audience. And while the microphone, Diana, is the microphone is distracted.
The microphone is giving a hug to someone.
Yes, could the microphone? If anyone has a question, wave, and Diana will come and find you. Bill, you have
it was that all the flexibility of Scala makes it very expressive to work in, and that's what I think I really like about the
expressivity.
It's just, well, I can be expressive. I can express myself and find ways to solve problems in it. because of all the features, I think. That's
Okay.
me, the thing I like the best.
So, Eugene, do you have a best and worst feature, and is it macros?
It is macros and macros, of course, but on a serious note, I would agree with Martin. So my personal favorite feature is implicit parameters. So this is something that Martin covered during his keynote, and I think that's a great way to provide context to computation. So I would really like to reiterate this point here. So the interaction of implicit parameters and macros, my another favorite feature, is actually what I consider to be super cool about my PhD research. How we did materialization and how that sparked different frameworks, notably Shapeless, for instance, to do code generation in a completely hidden way, which is, well, what could be better?
Okay, any other favorite or least favorite features from the
Yeah, I'll name a worst, which is universal equality. It's something we're JVM users have had for so long that we're just inured to it, but it's not one of the kind of sexier things to fix, but it's on the Dotty list that really stands out for me, that we might finally get a better story on this.
And what's the status of that in Dotty, Dmitry?
It's in.
It's in, it works.
Well, we used inside Dotty itself.
That's fantastic. Good. Now, Diana either has someone with a question or she's calling time on me. It looks like it's time. I'm sorry, the panel has to come to an end. So what remains is for me to invite you to thank the members of the panel. Seth, Stefan, Dmitry, Eugene, Adriaan, and Dick. I mean Bill.
A lot of people have no idea why you just called me.
No.
But that's fine.
Bill
it's an
is very
inside
often
joke.
confused with Dick Wall.
Yes.
And nobody's ever seen them both in the same room at the same time. So would you please give them a round of applause?
Thank you.
And I will say to you, thank you all very much for coming to Scala Days in Chicago 2017. There are tickets available to Scala Days in Copenhagen, which is on the 30th of May to the 2nd of June. Copenhagen is a wonderful city I've not yet visited, but I will discover that in a month or so. There are tickets both to the conference and workshops, so check out the website for them. And all that remains is for me to wish you well and safe travels back, and enjoy the rest of your time in Chicago. Thank you very much.